Alright, on the back of the trailer here, this is one of the sides where I've got to replace both the paneling on the inside, which it doesn't look that bad, but it's actually pretty rotten down here. It's got some delamination right here. But also, I've got to replace some of the boards on this side, mainly down here at the bottom. You can see from this side, they're pretty badly beaten up. The frame is rotten up. So, these boards up here are fine, but actually what I want to do is I want to replace those and make this one continuous piece of wood so that you have a continuous piece of wood from here at the top all the way down to the bottom. Now ideally this whole side would just be a piece of plywood cut out with all the cutouts and the spaces for the insulation, and it would be a solid piece of wood, but we're not rebuilding the whole trailer. So what I did was decided to make this piece, since this will support the back. It'll give some support across the back, just kind of stiffen things up a little bit. So I took a piece of 3/4 inch 1x8 pine, you'll see here, and I put that up against the side. I marked it, and then I cut that mark off. Cut the line, tried to cut it as close as I could to being to the same exact profile. Then I went and the next thing is to kind of piece it into place. So you can see right there, I made some lines to where I've got to cut off the other pieces. Okay, and that will be the first step of it. And this picture right here, you can see I've got that piece, you can see a little bit better because I pulled the metal back. I've got that piece sitting in there. Traced off even with the top edge, and also to show you sort of there again what I'm going to cut off and pull out the framing members on the rear side there. Here you can see I cut off and use pocket screws. You could also, a couple other ways you could do this, but the way I like to do is pocket screws. Right there in the middle is where I cut that old framing off. Pulled the framing on the left out. I put the new framing in, and then I put pocket screws and all of that. You'll notice that I did this actually sort of backwards. It will hold here, but ideally you don't want to screw into an end grain of a board like that. If you can, you'd like to do it the other way. So putting the pocket screws in the piece to the right would actually be ideal. Alright, I'm about to show you here how I cut a panel for the back of the trailer. The two pieces I just removed, I've taken here, and there's really no reason to have a seam here. So I'm going to take these and reapproximate them, put them back together the way they came, and I'm going to make that one panel. That will be one less seam that I have to the back lower side of the window here. So what I did is I took my plywood, and you want to cut so that you don't get tear out. You want to cut with the back side of the plywood up, because of the way the saw spins. That'll be your best way to cut. That's almost universal on any type of saw. So I've got my two pieces here, and I'm using these clamps to hold them down, and I've got my edge here that was at my this is the edge I cut. This is the edge. You got to remember this is flipped over. So this is the back edge of the trailer where the curve is. You'll notice here I've got a little bit missing. I think this probably comes somewhere down in here. But you'll also notice that the plywood is set back from the bottom. This plywood actually fits in between the back sill board and the framing. So I'm going to leave a little extra for that to go down in between the framing and the seal board. So this will get sandwiched in. Also, this will give me a little extra here so that if things don't line up, I can, which they won't, I'll just cut this across here, and then I'll have a little extra if I need to make it match it with the framing, because this part was rotten, and I can trim that when I get it on the trailer. You'll notice here I'm actually going to put these to where they were almost touching. They were about like this on the trailer. There's maybe a 1/16 of an inch in between them. I will line those up about like that. Then I will take the whole thing and I will trace it, take it apart, move these pieces out of the way, and then cut those out. One other thing I forgot to mention is that when I took the back shelf down, I looked at that and figured out pretty quick that was going to be difficult to realign the nail holes, because I had a board on the inside that's set like this, and I have a panel on the outside, and I have to blindly find the holes. But one thing I'm going to do here, a little trick that I figured out, is if you want to take, this is actually where the bottom of the back shelf sits on the sidewall. You can see I've still got a nail sticking out here. These two nails here and these two nails here hold that in. So before I take this panel and get rid of it, which I won't for a while, I will take those nail holes and mark those nail holes right here by just taking and poking through from the old panel into the new panel, so that when I put the new panel up, that will instantly align my nail holes, so that I can find on the outside panel that I can find those, and on the inside panel I'll know where to align the wood on the inside, so that the wood sits on the other side of this board, but the wood will sit centered on those nail holes, so that the nails go actually into the end grain of the piece of wood on the other side. You can do that for anything such as that. Also, let's see, right here I believe it is, these holes are for the bars that go across the back that make the child's bunk in the back. I'll do the same thing for those. I'll punch those holes through because I want those brackets to go in the exact same location as what they were before.
In this photo here, you'll see my wife is doing what is called a French polish method of applying shellac. You can do it with a brush, and I tried it with a brush, but this is actually by far, to me, in my opinion, the easiest way to do it. Takes a little bit of getting used to. Obviously, like anything else, you have to learn how to do it. But once you get the hang of it, man, this is the shellac goes down really smooth, goes down really easy. It's pretty easy to get it very even and very smooth without blotches in it. I'm not going to go into exactly how to do that all the way. Mobile Tech has a great video that I'll put a link to down in the description, where he goes into in depth and shows how he did that on a trailer. And you can watch that video. He does a great job of explaining all of that. Once we got done with that, you'll see here, this is 3 coats, I believe, of shellac, amber shellac, and 1 or 2 coats, I believe it's 2 coats of clear shellac. In between the 2 coats, I gave it a pretty good, I say pretty good, I actually gave it a really light sanding with some 220 grit, and that made the finish really smooth when it was finished. And once we got done, we took that panel and put that panel back in place on top of the finished framing that we had replaced. And you can see there, the panel matches pretty well. That's going to be different on different trailers, different styles of trailers, and in actually just different trailers themselves, because of the way they applied the shellac. I've seen different trailers and they don't all look the same. And even within my own trailer, I can tell a pretty decent variation in the shade and the darkness of the shellac. Just between the front and the back of the trailer, there's a pretty good variation there. So I'll go into that a little bit more later when I go to trying to make those 2 panels match, the old panel and the new panel. But it is reasonable, or it is relatively easy to get a good match between those 2, especially once you have them in the trailer beside each other. We'll do a little more finishing on the old panel, sort of to make it blend in and match with the new panel. So that's it for right now. If you enjoyed the video, please, if this is your first video, go down and hit that subscribe button. You'll get updates every time I post a video. Also, please consider checking me out on YouTube and Instagram. I post a lot of stuff over there. I'll have links to that stuff in the description. And also, if you enjoyed this video, give me a thumbs up. That helps me to continue producing them. And if you got any questions or comments, give me a shout down in the comments below, and I'll answer those ASAP.